On asset finance from ABSA, going off the beaten track to find solutions.
Welcome back. I'm Roald Woods together with Arnold Geertz as we continue round 5 of the ABSA Off-Road Championship here at Sun City. And still racing along the first loop towards the designated service point, Hannes Grobler was in complete control.
The burly man was celebrating his 31st year in motorsport in typical fashion, hard and all out.
Yeah, well, I guess it's the only way he knows. As for Woolridge and Schulthammer, the former winners here were firmly settled in second place and trying to marry cautious driving with good speed.
And it certainly looked like they got that absolutely spot on right. The De Bruins, with only one finish to their credit in the Nissan Sugarbelt 400, were pressing hard, but not too hard early on.
And they displayed caution here at just the right time.
The Harpers, who had produced such a fine prologue, were not having great luck, and last year's championship runners-up knew that they had to nurse the Atlas Copco to the finish.
If at all.
Grenier and Birkenwrong started again and again. It cost them time.
They mark first. Gone. Right, yeah, left. More left. Here's the track there. 200 crossroads straight. Here's the crossroads straight.
While Tollefson and Quinn were having the drive of their lives, they hadn't tasted victory on South African soil yet, but have come close a few times. And they thought Sun City, well, it was a good opportunity.
With Cox and Ter Steege attacking this tricky descent and the following ascent with vigor. But the motorized Ford could not quite make it up to the other side.
Their teammates, Hutchinson and Bergman, were next, but realized quickly that Cox had got it stuck, and thus they too were going nowhere fast.
And the queue was building up, the Sawbolts feeling the watcher's pinch.
And then Evan got the line set out and went by. But that meant there was now more water on the path.
The championship leaders were next.
And they got through, but still more moisture on the upslope.
And then Whitehouse and Carlson in the Regent Racing Bat.
Through, and still Cox was going nowhere.
Gibson and Campbell were still 7th in Class A and were exceptionally consistent after almost 200 kilometers of really hard racing.
Conversely, Variawa and Rousseau had the bit between their teeth and were picking up places left, right and center. The Total Motorsport duo were motoring.
But after lining it up, they had to stop. Matthews and Smith were having an altercation with the steep hill as well.
With Cox and Ter Steege still firmly in the grasp of the mud, there was little space and no other lines available.
And a lot more moisture on the upslope and nowhere to get a grip. Take 3, as they say in the voiceover business.
They certainly do. Here goes. Up she goes, and voila, finally.
And then Variawa could have a go. That Porter with a 7-litre engine never even felt it.
Marsh and Groenewald were, as always, very frugal with their speed and trying to conserve life and limb, as well as the car.
And they were doing a good job of it too.
In Class P, the brothers White had now taken the lead, and the Rubicon Bat was behaving just the way they wanted it to. Fast, strong, and steady.
Berthold and Vermeulen in their second Atlas Copco were up a fistful of places, and it started whittling down the Class A competitors in front of them.
With Ferguson and West taking the Ford Ranger through its paces without pushing it too hard, nor themselves for that matter.
Spectators are generously catered for in the Northwest Province, except that is for young Cry, who tried his level best to spray that group with some local mud.
Luckily, he came up just short. But in Class B, he was certainly not short of the mark, in the lead, in fact.
With their nearest challenger, the Staffix Racing duo of Alistair Stubbs and Peter de Wit, a good 12 minutes behind.
And the Zermattans working the Ryobi Nissan hard up the incline that became known as Cox's Hill.
The Staffix Viper then had its turn on the slippery slope, but luckily, all's well that ends well.
In Class D, it was the defending national champions, Cliff Weichelt, with Nico Els in the jump seat, who were in the lead, and they were ahead by 5 minutes, faster than the Zermattans on the first loop.
And in the green, white and red of the Castrol Toyota factory team, it was Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst who were 7th in the SP class and 18th overall after losing their power steering after just the first 50 Ks.
Makgaganene and Minute were battling fuel systems, and to top that, Atang was still getting used to being back behind the wheel again.
Talk about bad luck. Fossum Pitchford's first drive back together again after the Navigator's overseas commitments were met was not great. But after starting with a 90-minute deficit, the three-time winner this season pulled out all the stops. They were up 32 places and still climbing.
Now back in Class C, it was a you first scenario, as Fenter and Palmer made way for Yannick Visser and Joks Leroux, who were having a grand season. But the championship leaders in the specials, the Solvots, had flipped it sideways and over. Luckily, there were some very willing spectators who did the powerlifting thing and got it back on its paws. But they'd lost some time and some oil.
Back at DSP, though, it was Grobler and Moore were looking like they were unbeatable in the Sun City push and sun.
This is when the slick Nissan machine springs into action. Watch carefully. Every man knows exactly what he has to do and just gets on with it, especially Grobler.
Very tough there. We had a lot of cattle on the road. We've also made a car on the road. The car went very, very well. Jean did a great job to find the route there in the bush where there was nearly no track. And we're happy. I don't know how much we're leading, but I think the next lap we can give it a little bit more stick.
Woolridge and Schulthammer made Ford fans very happy as they sped into DSP, having clocked one of the fastest SP times for the first loop of almost 200 Ks. How was it out there, Kenny?
That's nice. Very nice. New terrain. The second part was new terrain. It was very nice. Fortunately, it hasn't been too bad. We've got it. No, it's not too bad. No, the car's perfect. Just looking after it. Thanks.
Didier de Bruin couldn't quite say the same. The Toyota was acting up.
Dit was so 60 kilos aan die race aan begin, so dit so 130 kilos met die misfire gereis. Maar gelukkig nie papwiele nie en ek dink dit is wat ons posisie behou het.
But the bush, dust, water and terrain had taken its toll, and a lot of vehicles hadn't even made the designated service point.
For Mark Renier, it was a race of attrition out there.
Yeah, the route's quite tough. Unfortunately, we've had quite a few punctures, so it's put us sort of out of the running at the moment. So we'll have to just try and keep it clean, keep positive to the end, and hopefully the other guys start picking up problems. The vehicle feels great. There's no hassle. It's just, it's having endless problems with punches.
One puncture cost us a very nice race. Took us 3 minutes to change the wheel, and after that we've been in the dust of Alfie. We managed to pass Alfie, but we're still in the dust of the brace.
Hutchinson and Bergman put in a typical Motorride charge and clocked the fastest time of the first loop by almost 3 minutes.
We're in the lead at corrected time, about 2 minutes, but it's been very frustrating. You know, we've been caught behind Ivo Tollefson in his distance. We've caught him about 3 times, but we just haven't managed to get past. So we're running at his pace, unfortunately. You know, we can't go any quicker. So, and I think the reason we're in the lead is we had a good half of the first half of the lap. We made up quite a bit of time, but since it's halfway, we've been steadily losing time. So if I can't get past him, I know the guys are catching us from behind. I don't know if we're going to be able to hold on to our lead. So You know, they have to, we're going to have to pull something out of their bag to get past them, otherwise we're going to lose the lead.
Yeah, very nice. It's rough, but I've lost gears, so I can't change gears. You know, I think the gear selector's gone or something. So, or the cable's stretched, so we're just making it that. But very dusty. Lost a lot of the time, so we're just tracking behind Evan and Stuart. He rolled just before me. But it's tight, it's rough, but it's a good test.
For the Total Motorsport team, there was also frustration.
No problem. Guys moving smooth. Just the dust, we can't get past the guys. Better to get Colin Matthews. We are behind him for the last 50 Ks. Eventually we got it. So now we've got clean road and hopefully we'll do well.
And Shamir, after that good first loop, what are the plans for Loop 2?
Loop 2, we're gonna just drive as fast as we can. Try and pick up the place.
For the rest of the crew still inside the top 10, there was a lot of work to be done inside and outside of the cars.
Mechanics had to try and repair, while drivers and navigators knew the hardest part would be to bring the vehicle home in one piece and score some points.
And that certainly is the tough part.
And even though he was smiling, Taylor had had a hard day at the office.
No, we had a brake pipe shear off this morning, about 20 k's in, after making quite good progress. And then we fixed that, got going again, catching up, and then in the dust of one of the guys that went past us earlier when we had the brake problem, we got a flat, had to stop, fix that. Then just after that again, another flat. This time the jack had packed up as well, so well, we just had a dismal Sun City experience, and now the exhaust is broken off also, so we don't want to risk it and break something further, so we decided to call it a day.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA, overcoming all obstacles.